Hey guys, and welcome to episode 12 of Aussies taking over the NBA. It's a sad day today. I've got Andy here with me.
G'day.
We lost Aron Baynes from the Celtics, which is a bit disappointing to not have any Aussies appear in the finals this season. We've had Delhi previously. We had Baynes. Bogut winning a championship, Delhi winning a championship. We had Paddy Mills not too long ago. So, we've had a fair few Aussies represent in the NBA in the past 4 or 5 years, which has been pretty good. But unfortunately, this year we won't see any, which is a shame. Just a reminder, you can find us on Twitter at OzNBA Takeover. You can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud at #The Collective.
And Podcast Addict at Aussies Take Over the NBA.
And also you can find us on YouTube as well at OzNBA Takeover. We'll get into wrapping up the Cleveland versus Boston series, game 7.
6 and 7, and we witnessed the Celtics shitting the bed.
Yeah, it was a bit disappointing. They couldn't get anything going late down the stretch of that game.
Yeah, that was it was undefeated at home in the whole playoff series. Played very poorly away from home most of the series.
Yeah,
most of the playoffs actually. But you think that they'd be able to pull it together for one last game at home, but I think just the LeBron factor and the pressure in a relatively young team took its toll, and they were unable to convert Game 7, which should have been theirs to win.
Yeah, it was a 87-79 victory for the Cavaliers in the end, and LeBron goes to the finals for an 8th straight year. It's a pretty crazy stuff.
It is, and you know what? The more the season goes on, it's really LeBron featuring a cameo by Kevin Love and 7 undiagnosed players. It's been pretty one-way basketball. None of the experienced guys in Cleveland have done much this series. It's really LeBron taking the bull by the horns and winning games for Cleveland.
Yeah, so we'll go all the way back to games 1 and 2. Game 1 was a 108-83 victory for the Celtics, which was pretty promising. They had a nice big lead early.
Yeah, it's one of those games that, like a lot of the games in both the East and West, you get out to a really fast start and it's pretty much game over. Just cruise, maintain lead, and the Cavs weren't coming back from that. But it's something that we saw from Boston all playoff run is a strong home performance, good sharp first quarter, and then gliding into the end with some strong defense and guarding the perimeter. One thing that you kind of have to notice is Brad Stevens changed things up this series. They went to instead of guarding the arc, they went to a very much zone defense to try and box out LeBron. It didn't really work for my mind away from home. No. I think because they shot poorly. At home it worked somewhat, and Baynes had a really, really good series defensively. I think he guarded Tristan Thompson and LeBron quite well. I mean, you're going to get dunks over yourself, but he put his body on the line and got out there and was able to push LeBron outside of the paint quite consistently, and getting some good boards as well on top of that.
Yeah, so he came off the bench in game 1, and I thought he did quite well to defend LeBron James on the perimeter, especially with how LeBron was shooting. His shooting this season has just been unbelievable, and it's a part of his game that it's probably the weakest aspect of his game, and one that if you're planning against a Cavaliers team, you'd probably bank on hoping that his jump shot sort of fails, and that might be one of his aspects of the his game that you would target. But I mean, he was just shooting so well in this entire series, and
this series has really brought into point LeBron's immortality as potentially the best player that's ever played the game. I think that he's taken a team of virtually nobodies on large salaries to the promised land single-handedly.
Yeah.
Kevin Love's been somewhat instrumental in most of the series, but I mean, guys like J.R. Smith has been poor.
Yeah.
George Hill has been poor. Larry Nance has not played a lot of minutes. Defensively, he's defended quite well, but no attacking option. Tristan Thompson, no attacking option, good offensive rebounder, good boards, but there's no scorers. It's LeBron hocking up 50% of their points every game.
Yeah. So Baynes he played 25 minutes off the bench in the first game. He shot 2 of 5 from the field, which wasn't too bad. He had 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. I think one of those was a rip on LeBron as well, and 1 block. He was a plus 17, which, going into the series, you wouldn't have expected Baynes to be a focal point of this Boston defense. He did really well pairing with Horford, and he did really well as a big body down low. Defending LeBron James down low, it was clear that, when he was switched on to Baynes, he would bring him out to the perimeter because he didn't want to sort of go against him one-on-one down low.
Yeah, he would definitely lay back, shoot, or, try and push out to the perimeter and shoot over him, or fading jump shot, or, just things that were not getting directly to the rim and getting over Baynes, I think, which is pretty good defense from a guy whose defensive prowess regular season he's not the quickest footwork-wise.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that, is promising, again, for a guy who's coming off contract and into the free agency market. And showcasing, because we want him to stay in the NBA.
Yeah. So there was a 26-point lead at halftime, and it was pretty much over. And, I thought that got the crowd into it too, because Boston, are a crowd that know championships. So they know big moments. They've all watched big moments. And for them to get off to such a good start in the series really showed, some promise for Boston going forward. And, obviously the series starts when you win in Cleveland for the Celtics, but for them to get off to such a good start was really good.
Which they've done. They did against Philly, second round, and they've done that very well. First game of a series, jumping straight out of the blocks. Did that against Milwaukee as well. So where they were always going to be a question mark is their away performances. And I think game 2, again, did it quite easy against Cleveland. At home, everyone played quite well. Baynes with 9 points on 17 minutes, so good amount of boards, 1 assist, good plus positive minutes on the floor. And again, I think the Cavs have really tried to push Tristan Thompson into this series and make him have an impact. And he was kind of nullified by Baynes.
Yeah.
Horford didn't play too well this game, I don't think.
Yep.
A little bit sluggish at times, but still scoring well.
Well, it was a 107-94 win for the Celtics, and with the crowd really right into it early.
It's always a Boston home crowd, though. They're always going to be nuts.
And they kind of you could sense that after LeBron threw those punches really early. I mean, he was hitting some crazy shots. I think he had
21 points in the first quarter.
Yeah, I think he had 7 from 8 or 8 from 9, and crazy shots, shots where it made you sit up and think that even though it's LeBron, he's hitting some crazy shots. And I thought that was interesting to see the Celtics sort of battle back from that.
Yeah, they were down quite early on, I think, in the first quarter.
Yeah, I think they went down by 11. And they'd got it down to 7 by halftime. But the other part of this series too was in this game, it sort of made me look at the way LeBron was playing and think he needs to come out in these games and rest in the first 2 quarters, facilitate, not just go crazy, because I thought they just kind of fell in a hole down the stretch of that game.
Well,
he looked tired.
It was LeBron got smacked in the jaw by Jason Tatum.
Yeah, and that was game, that.
And then he just kind of came, went to the change rooms for a concussion protocol test and kind of came back and was very coy and a bit not into it, and nothing was dropping for Cleveland second half, and Boston crowd, the 6-man. Boston ran away with it. So for me, that was the game that Cleveland were going to steal at home from Boston. But again, you get unlucky, you get smacked in the gob, and
and I thought Boston showed some good promise to sort of battle back anyway. To win that by 12. I think they ended up winning it by. It showed, that Boston was a fortress and they could really have an impact on this series at home if they could hold their own at home. Because obviously in Game 3, they went into Game 3, and that started with a 20-4 Cavs lead. And then all of that was just undone instantly. It was always they had to equal
the Cavs first quarter. If they
Yeah.
if they could do that in any game away from home, there was hope down the stretch. But
Yeah.
I mean, they just hock up shots. They don't fall. They don't move as well as they do at home. They're a lot quicker. I mean, defensively, they're very similar. They're a good defensive team, but it was really their shots weren't dropping. And,
I think the Cavs play with when they play with home crowd, it really gives them a massive boost. And the more their shots go in, the more runs they go on, the more really good highlight plays they come up with, the more the crowd gets them energized, and the more they feed off it. And it's a crescendo type effect. LeBron's making plays. He's making good-looking plays, big dunks. You got Kevin Love hitting shots, you got Korver hitting shots, and, for Boston, they needed to really step up and show that in Cleveland they could withstand something like that. And I thought that 20-4 run at the start really gave you a sense of, look out Boston, because you've got a problem here that you need to sort of fix in the next game, and you need to come out and make sure that you don't let them run away with this lead. Otherwise, it's going to be tough for you to win this series, in Cleveland.
All throughout the last two podcasts, we've spoken about the ability of LeBron to pinch a game, and when was it going to be?
Yeah.
If the Celtics didn't win that game 3. When was LeBron going to pinch a game away from home?
Yeah.
That was it. And we knew the Cavs were going to take it. Some thought 5, some thought 6. But, they needed to go out there and pinch that game 3. For me, once it went to game 4 and the Cavs cleaned up at home, it was a series Boston were unlikely going to win.
Yeah, well, at 2-2, I mean, they came back a little bit at the end of that game 4. Enough to give you this sense that, Boston's still in the series, if they can put some sort of performance together in Cleveland, then they're going to have a real chance to win this series. And, going into game 5, it was a 96-83 win at home for Boston. It was, that was almost flat. The atmosphere in that game was almost quite flat. And you could sense that once this game had gotten to game 5, Boston knew that LeBron James game was coming, like you said. And I don't know how, mentally how you can get your players around something like that, because they really started to tighten up in that game 5 and game 6. Their scoring stopped, their movement stopped. Horford kind of, maybe he was getting a bit tired down the stretch of that series and he was struggling, and they sort of fell in a hole a little bit in games 5 and 6.
They did, and I think that's exactly right. What you were saying is that they were waiting for that game where LeBron was going to go nuts or just box them out and back them down, and a strong Cleveland performance away from home, which we haven't seen really this season. And even in game 7, I think Boston lost that more than Cleveland won that.
Yeah.
That was them getting in their own heads and believing that LeBron was the best instead of thinking. And again, they were a young team.
Yeah.
Jason Tatum, second best player in the series, for my mind.
Yep. It's only his first year as well. And I mean, he had that big dunk at the end of game 7. And that was right after Rozier had gotten blocked as well. I mean, Rozier's got to go up and lay that in around LeBron James. I mean, trying to dunk on LeBron James is, pretty big in itself. And it turned out it was a bit of a foul as well, but you're not going to get that call. Like, what you really need to do is make sure you put the ball in the hoop.
Yeah.
And I guess sometimes it is going up strong and dunking on someone, but I mean, you're rolling the dice trying to dunk on LeBron. And then Tatum actually did have that big dunk on LeBron. And it felt like the crowd got really into that, but it was almost like it was an adrenaline surge, and then everything just got sucked out of them.
It got faded away. Because I think, everyone's holding their breath knowing what this guy is going to do. This is his fate 8th final in a row.
Yeah.
Fate would have it that it's more likely he's going to get them there than you're going to get there yourself.
Yeah.
But I still think that that Boston should have won that series with the talent that Cleveland doesn't have, and the talent that they have with Jaylen Brown, Tatum, Horford, Baynes, Rozier when he was going nuts from beyond the arc. Maybe Morris and Smart not pulling their weight in the later games of that series, for my mind. Not a great deal of bench depth beyond that. Shane Larkin as a second ball handler was out.
Yeah.
It does show Cleveland really has no depth.
No, beyond Love, Korver, and George Hill had a couple of 14-point games, 13-point games.
Stand out.
Yeah, great performances. And then I think he had a 20-point game in Cleveland in Game 6. I mean, he was very good at home, but not very good away from home. Which, I mean, for a player that's not superstar standard or really supporting cast standard, that's you've got to just roll with what you get from some of those players. And then with Love,
he's got good handles. I mean, Love,
and he's long too. I mean, so obviously that whole series was about switching anyone that was bigger onto Rozier, and trying to score on Rozier, and that's obviously something they're not going to defend. With LeBron as one of the best scorers in the game at the moment, that's something they're really going to struggle to defend. So obviously at the start, they've got to worry about Rozier. So that's one thing on defense they've got to worry about all the time. George Hill as well is a lot longer than Rozier as well. So obviously they've got that, George Hill and LeBron pick and roll, and whoever's switches onto Rozier obviously can score. So, I mean, they went to that a lot in Cleveland, but they didn't seem to get much from that in Boston at all, which I thought was a bit strange. I mean, Horford seemed to play really well in Boston, then just terrible away from home.
I don't understand the whole concept of the home court advantage in a series. Like, I can understand the crowd's cheering for you and it's all great, but it just seems like the body language of Boston as well away from home was, someone misses a shot, heads go down. It's, but at home it's like, oh yeah, we can continue to fight. It's just, you're professional athletes.
Yeah.
Like, you're getting paid to be on top of things.
Well, I guess that's the inexperience of that Celtics team sort of shining through. I mean, LeBron, 8 straight finals. He in that situation, he kind of was playing a little bit with house money. He had nothing to lose, really. I mean, if they lose that, everyone goes, oh, well, LeBron did his best, and that's what happens. I mean, it sucks. It would have sucked for him to lose in any circumstance, like trying to get to his 8th straight. But, he played that whole game 7 just totally relaxed. Like, that's all right, as long as we stop them from scoring. I've got this, guys. And, it sort of transferred onto their players late in that game. And in the reverse for Boston, it was like the crowd sort of sensed, oh no, this is going to go badly here and we're going to blow it, which I felt that sort of transferred onto their players as well.
Yeah.
And Horford looked tired. Baynes even looked a little bit tired. Tatum, he was playing on just pure youth adrenaline. And
played well.
Yeah.
And kept that team in it for most of the last quarter.
And even, Jaylen Brown, who's someone that started the series really, really well, he sort of became less and less effective in that series, which I thought was strange. Maybe, he was playing with that little hamstring injury, or, he got blocked a couple of times by Korver, so maybe that sort of might have rocked his confidence a little bit. I think he struggled to sort of get by George Hill a little bit, and with Tristan Thompson out there, they kind of were balking at the rim a little bit. Like, there was less of the guards trying to score around Nance and Tristan Thompson, and more trying to get Horford and Baynes to score. And Baynes is not a great finisher around the rim, and especially as a roll guy, he's like rolling off a pick and roll. He's better off either getting to the corner or staying up and handling the ball for a second sort of, second action, and Horford's that guy who goes in and backs down in the post. And they couldn't even get that going at home. So,
but I mean, Terry Rozier shooting 14% in the final game is never going to win you anything.
Well, what is he? I think he was 0 from 10.
He was 14%
from 3. I think he had a 0 from 10 for 3. Yeah, and Marcus Smart off the bench had 0 for 4 from 3. And 7 for 39. I mean, it was Brick City. in the Boston game.
Game 7 seemed to be Brick City. I mean, Rockets, none from 27.
Yeah, Brick City in that Rockets game. So maybe that does say a little bit about the psychology of resting your guys and having a collective of players who can interchange in and out and not having that singular player. Because I think the Celtics are building a team, if you know what I mean. Like they're building a team with a lot of different pieces that can be used in different ways as a team. Whereas if you look at the Cavs and the Rockets, they're sort of built around one guy and a supporting cast of a bunch of other guys. I mean, the Cavaliers don't have a great supporting cast.
No.
You know, they fight hard and they played well enough in this series to get them over the line. But the Rockets supporting cast seems to be a lot better. And even they tightened up and sort of flinched in the moment to lose a series.
Chris Paul, that's if Chris Paul plays, probably the best Rockets player of the series up until that injury. If he plays Game 7,
well, I don't think he was really that good. I don't think he was good in Game 4 and in Game 5, but in both of those games, he played 40 minutes, and he's not really a 40-minute player. He's 34 and, has a history of injuries and breaking down at the end of series. So, I mean, people just tighten up. Like, I mean, they were at home. Like, it's different for, the Rockets just kept putting up shots. I mean, I didn't feel like Boston really just kept putting up shots.
No, they were trying to run plays. They were trying to be smart about what they did, whereas the Rockets, 2-3 seconds into the shot clock were just hocking up shots. Ariza was none from 12. He didn't score a point that whole game.
Yeah.
It was woeful to watch. It was hilarious to watch. It was bad.
It sort of goes to show you just how high the stakes are and how high fatigue really plays a factor in some of these teams. And I mean, it's something that the Cavaliers down the stretch of that series just seemed to it didn't affect them. Like, it didn't really affect them in the way that it affected the other teams. Golden State was the same.
We keep waiting for LeBron to break down. He just doesn't.
Nah,
he's
doesn't.
A machine.
He's an absolute animal. And he looked really tired. But at the start of that series, he looked like I saw him at the end of last year in the finals, and I just thought, man, like he can barely do anything. But maybe he was saving his energy. And, in that second game where he had that the burst really early, he died down the stretch of that game. And then I felt like in Cleveland, he sort of paced himself and sort of let himself catch his breath a little bit, relax and go, okay, I don't have to do everything early. I don't have to come out, waste all my energy early. And I felt like Boston didn't capitalize on that. Like Boston sort of down the end of that series didn't go at LeBron enough, didn't attack LeBron enough. I mean, every time he scored at the rim, you've got to throw it out and make the guy run back down court. Or if he doesn't run back down court, you're playing 5-on-4 down the other end. And they stopped doing that. And I guess that's just those little mental things, like the little inches that give you an advantage in the series.
The experience factor of a team. I thought Horford might have led them into the promised land a bit better. But again, young team, same as Philly.
Yeah.
They'll be there next year or thereabouts.
Yeah, well, they've got Hayward coming back and Kyrie Irving coming back, and even some of their other sort of, Shane Larkin was an extra guy in the rotation, and Daniel Tice, another sort of bigger body that could have helped. But I mean, that's playoff basketball,
It is.
Did you want to talk anything about that Rockets Warriors series? Or?
Mate, we can talk about Steph going nuts in third quarters.
Yeah.
We can talk about Clay going nuts. This, I don't see how the Warriors lose. I really don't.
I don't think. I can't see the way that Golden State are coached. I feel like they're the Celtics, but 5 years sort of down the line.
5 years and with more natural talent. I mean, you've got a Steph Curry, you've got a Klay Thompson who can hit threes and just hit ridiculous shots. Kevin Durant's the best ISO player in the league, for my mind.
Well, but him and LeBron are the two best. I mean, they're both different types of players, which sort of separates them.
But pure ISO,
yeah,
where they will actively switch off to let him ISO against anyone. Draymond Green, who is a bulldog,
yeah,
he will defend till the death. their depth is something that if one gets injured early in the series, it becomes a bit more even. They haven't got the depth. I think the Jordan Bill actually had a fantastic series. I think for a rookie in a team where he hasn't played a lot, he hasn't been able to show and shine a lot, he's played really well.
Yeah, he's very bouncy and a very good defender off no steps. So, he got cooked a little bit by Harden. Like, I'm not going to say he was perfect, but neither was Steph.
Neither was Steph. I mean, you're going to get cooked by Harden and Chris Paul. Their handles are the best. Like, low down, quick. But that was never going to be the issue against Houston. It was always going to be defend the other players, make sure Capella doesn't get to the rim, make sure Gordon is...
And Gordon played great. Like, he played a great series. And, I mean, you can see what the Rockets are kind of doing to combat the Warriors. Like, they've got James Harden, who's stout. They've got PJ Tucker, who's stout. Gordon's quite stout. And then Capella, who seemed to defend not too badly on the perimeter. I mean, he got doused a little bit by Curry. But they're guys that are just thick. Yeah. And they get in underneath you and really put you off your game. And if you allow them to be physical, they can put a guy like Durant off his game, and they can put a guy like Curry off his game. And then I look at the Cavaliers, and they don't have those players. They've got an array of kind of normal-looking players.
They've got an array of mediocrity.
Yeah.
They've got mediocrity and the best player.
Yeah. So I can't see... I
see LeBron winning a game at home.
Yeah.
I definitely see him taking out game 3. I think the Warriors will take out game 1 and 2 pretty easily. I see him taking out game 3. And then I see the Warriors coming home 2 games after that. He's got one game where he will just blow them away and Curry's shot won't drop and Clay will... Yeah. That's fair enough. But
it's the same as that Boston series, that game 3 where they came out and it was 20-4.
Yeah.
And... in a way, I felt like Boston never really had that. Oh, it's 20-4. We can score 15 in 5 minutes and we're back in the game. Whereas the Warriors, I feel like a 25-point lead isn't safe, really.
No, there's only a couple of teams where a 25-point lead isn't safe. They're one of them. Houston's another one.
And I kind of felt like the Cavs a little bit in this series felt like there were sparks of that.
There were sparks of that, but they can't drop fast from 3-point land unless LeBron shot's on and Kyle Korver's on. And even then, Kyle Korver's a 15-point man a game. Yeah. He's not a 30-point man a game. The only other team is, OKC on a very, very, very good night when they're all dropping. There's probably the 3 teams that could put a 30-point lead, a deficit to bed.
For OKC, it's all about, the whirlwind of every aspect of basketball. It's not just shooting. It's not just power in the post. It's a whirlwind of everything. It's Westbrook, Steven Adams, Carmelo, wing jumpers, and then obviously Paul George. I mean, we saw in that Jazz series, they had a few troubles there, but I can't see this series going more than 5 games, to be honest.
No.
And I know it sounds harsh, and I know it's LeBron, and it's stupid to kind of bet against LeBron, but they just, like I said, the Warriors feel like they're 5 years ahead of teams like the Celtics, teams like Houston, who are just sort of now realizing, we don't need, one guy doing everything. We need 3 or 4 guys who are good enough to carry certain aspects, and then we play as a team.
Yeah.
And I think that's where LeBron's career is starting to sort of fade into the wilderness, or not the wilderness, but he's the twilight of his career, being a single guy carrying a team.
But again, he's that because he's built that team around him.
Yeah.
Second half of this season. First half of this season, he had the likes of D Rose, D Wade, Isaiah Thomas, guys that could handle the ball well.
Yep.
That could potentially be that playoff. I mean, look at Dwayne Wade. He stays in Cleveland. I mean, he had a great series against Philly.
Yeah,
he played so well for an old guy.
Yeah,
he stays in Cleveland. That gives him a second ball handling option, and scoring 20+ points a game.
Yeah,
there's been no other scorers except LeBron. Kevin Love scored less than 70 in that series.
Yeah,
I mean, he didn't play Game 7, but that's poor.
I feel like his effectiveness in the post.
He's not a center. He's not a true
it's
center.
Not it's very sort of fool's gold type of, not fake hustle, but it's very sort of fool's gold type of stuff. It's not dangerous like Embiid, where he's got triple threat moves, he's got size, he's got power, he's got the bulldoze move. He can shoot from outside. Obviously, I would play Love, in the way that Baynes was played by the Celtics, where he defended sort of, just to the left of the block, and then got out to the corner and shot threes. And then if he came out of the corner, he'd shoot threes. But they don't seem to run him like that. I mean, I guess with LeBron on the floor, their offense ends up being however LeBron sets up the play. If something breaks down, he can do something to create a shot or create something.
You see them trying to run a play, and it breaks down so early on. Like, you see them start, and then it's just like, all right, just hog it to LeBron.
Yeah.
Throw it to LeBron. And then, you don't even see a lot of movement around LeBron. You just like, everyone's just like, oh, what's he doing?
Yeah. Then sometimes those are the moments, like in this series against the Celtics, where that was a big difference. Like, Boston didn't really have a guy. They had Tatum, obviously, and Brown, both young and inexperienced guys, didn't sort of step up, and, they tried to do that, but ultimately wasn't enough. And
Tatum stepped up, I think, in terms of scoring, but he's not a playmaker. No. He's an ISO scorer. And he won't run plays for you. He won't, you're getting him to the basket. He's not getting any other plays. And if Terry Rozier isn't scoring, then, they're going to be struggling.
Yeah. I went with the Warriors in 5.
Yeah, I'm going Warriors in 5.
So we'll put that on the board. I guess we can come back to that. There's no Aussies in the finals, so it's worth covering for us.
No, indeed. But we will be back next episode to wrap Baynes' year up.
Yep. He had a great postseason.
Great postseason. Good regular season as well.
Yep.
In comparison to previous years, strong, fits in well into the Boston system, I think.
Yep.
As their primary center. So it'd be interesting to see if he does get re-signed for next year.
Yep. And just a reminder to follow us on Twitter, NBA Takeover, on hashtag The Collective on SoundCloud and iTunes. And we are on YouTube at NBA Takeover also. And we'll catch you next episode.
See ya.